Kagate Yulasoy's grand love play has finally cracked open, and the fallout is impossible to ignore. Huzzal Kaya turned him down with quiet certainty, and he answered in the most startling way. Why did Kagate, who couldn't reopen the door to Huzzal, appear out of nowhere beside Selin Yagsiaglu? The answer stings. Welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. Before we dive in, your subscription and support keep this voice alive, so don't forget to join the family. Tonight's story is a maze of emotion. A comeback plan whispered in private, a boundary set without hesitation, and a social media star pulled into the eye of a storm she never asked for. We're taking you through the secret chambers of a saga that feels written for television yet unfolded in real life. The triangle around Kagate Yulasoy, Huzzal Kaya, and Selin Yagsiaglu is layered with restraint, pride, and timing, every layer more astonishing than the last. First, the part no one wanted to say out loud. This wasn't a rumor drifting through empty air. This was the spark of an old bond, pressed by nostalgia and the ache of what-ifs. It was the hope that time might be kind to two people who once moved with a rare harmony. And then came reality, clear and cool as glass. Let's rewind to the beginning. Away from set lights and premieres, Kagate was visible only in fleeting snapshots, training at dawn, meditating at dusk, keeping his head down as if rebuilding from the inside out. Those close to him began to hear a line repeated with a meaningful tilt, some doors never truly shut. It sounded like a confession tucked into casual talk. Friends swapped notes. Was there a lingering chapter? Did he intend to ask for one more scene? The answer, they believed, was simple: Hazal. In the past, he'd spoken about her with warmth that never felt performative. Their post-breakup silence had been intentional and respectful, not the brittle quiet of anger but the measured stillness of two people refusing to tear at what had once been precious. That's why those who knew him well weren't shocked when he wondered aloud whether a fresh attempt might make sense. He started checking the weather around her heart, gently, indirectly, through mutual friends. Was Huzzal anchored? Was there space? He didn't push. He just listened. Then came the message he wasn't ready to hear. Huzzal's answer, relayed with grace, was firm. She wouldn't revisit that road. She held no bitterness, she carried no grievances, but she wasn't walking backward. Her circle described it as boundary, not rejection. A woman who honors her past without letting it run her future. She appreciated the memories, she was also at peace with the distance. For him, that small, decisive no echoed loudly. He had imagined a door left on the latch, air moving through the gap. When he learned it had been gently closed, something inside him shifted. Pride flinched. The heart does not enjoy being told the story is over. And right then, like a flashbulb in a dark room, a new name flooded the gossip feeds: Selin Yagsiaglu. One crisp morning, a black and white photograph splashed across a magazine page and landed everywhere within hours. There was Kagate, relaxed, laughing, easy-shouldered. There was Selin, casual and luminous, framed like a candid that wanted to be found. Questions erupted faster than anyone could answer them. Is this new love? When did it begin? Wasn't that fast? The louder whisper, the one that stung, suggested something else. Maybe this wasn't love announcing itself at all, maybe it was a message. The word revenge is dramatic, but it stuck because the timeline supported it. Even people in his orbit seemed surprised by the suddenness. He had not telegraphed a new romance to confidants the way he usually does. The speed looked less like a heart opening and more like a wound covering itself with bravado. A quote slipped from a newsroom back corridor, and it spread like perfume. He was shaken by Huzzal's elegance in saying no, and he wanted to prove, to himself as much as to the world, that he could move on instantly. The pictures only deepened that impression. They didn't look stolen, they looked composed. The frames were flattering, the angles clean, the smiles conspicuously effortless. Critics murmured that this was less a caught moment and more an arranged tableau. If true, that turned the episode into a broadcast with one viewer in mind. But what about Selin? Did she know the role the public was assigning her? She is not a naive newcomer. She built a career step by step, with strategy and polish. Being seen next to a star like Kagate naturally lifted her visibility. And yet, those whispers say she didn't clock the subtext at first. The personal history, his private turmoil, the trace of defiance baked into the timing, it may have been invisible from where she stood. Then the commentary hit, naming her, the replacement, and the symbol, and all the other labels that turn a woman into a headline instead of a person. That, insiders claim, made her uneasy. Nobody wants to be cast in a story that isn't theirs to tell. Her team's silence since then speaks volumes. No giddy confirmations, no winking denials, just a careful step back from the narrative avalanche. Because the stakes are not just clicks, they are reputations, careers, and the quiet peace someone else had fought hard to cultivate. Could it be that he never truly let go of Huzzal? People who watched them work, a rhythm of glances, a shorthand only they shared, think so. For many, the unfinished feeling was part of their legend. They had separated as adults, not enemies. Compliments had continued in interviews, and respect had remained the language they chose. So a renewed approach from him felt inevitable to some. What no one counted on was the clarity of her answer. Journalists now say he is doing that impossible thing, trying to carry heartbreak without letting a single piece drop. He appears torn between forward motion and the pull of an ending he doesn't accept. And that tension, they suggest, is written all over the images with Selin. It's also why they're cautious about naming it love just yet. Interest can be genuine, timing can be suspect. Sometimes both are true at once. What does Hazal make of all this? On the surface, calm. Those who know her well say her serenity is a choice, not an absence of feeling. She shows grace where others would show heat. She has her work, her home, her chosen priorities. And still, keen eyes noticed her posts the day after the pictures broke, immaculate, slightly distant, with an almost imperceptible smile. Fans read into it, as fans do. It felt like a sentence without words. I'm aligned with my path, everyone else can be aligned with theirs. Where do Kagate and Selin go from here? That is the question editors love because no answer is safe. Maybe this is brief and human, an attempt to refill a space that was never meant to be refilled so quickly. Maybe Selin's confidence steadies him and something real forms from the noise. But nobody can argue that the origin story doesn't smell like reaction. Relationships born out of reaction either flame out suddenly or harden into something stronger than anyone predicted. Only time knows which. So here stands a man in the middle of a personal weather system. On one side, a love he thought he could revisit if he knocked softly enough. On the other, a modern force of attention and poise who walked in just as the winds changed. In the center, a heart learning that old feelings don't dissolve just because you've decided they should. The industry will keep talking. The whispers will multiply. The takes will clash. And the most audacious prediction is already making the rounds. That his attempt to return to Huzzal, her refusal with dignity, and the instant spotlight on Selin will rank among the defining love stories of 2025's entertainment world. Is this revenge or rebirth? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither, and it's simply the mess of being human while everyone watches. Love is not a straight road, and pride is a poor navigator, and fame turns every detour into a parade. Somewhere inside this noise, a storm is still working its way through him. And storms do what they do, they test what can stand. Thank you for watching Secrets Behind the Stars. If you want to keep unraveling the stories behind the smiles and hear what happens the moment it happens, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Tell me in the comments, was this move motivated by love or by the bruise of rejection? I'll read the most striking thoughts in the next video. Until then, be kind with your words. People live inside the headlines we read. See you soon. Now, let's pull back the curtain one last time, because there's a thread you don't want to miss. The way this story unfurled changed moods with every hour. First came the hush, then the rumor, then the image. The image mattered. That monochrome confidence carried the scent of orchestration, the neatness of a shoot disguised as spontaneity. It was meant to feel effortless. And yet effort is the thing everyone smelled. Too crisp, too timely, too tidy. That is why the narrative of a message sent, not a bond born, refuses to fade. And think about the pacing. He moved from introspection to overt display almost overnight. For a man who guards his privacy, that about-face is a clue. Pride can be theatrical when it's hurting, and performance is second nature to people who spend their lives in front of lenses. If this was theater, it still had feelings underneath it. If it was a shield, it still covered something real. Huzzal's boundary wasn't coldness, it was composure. Refusing to reopen a door is not the same as locking it with anger. It's simply honoring the life you've built. That's what makes the aftermath sting even more. The gentler the no, the harder it is to argue with. You can rail against cruelty, you cannot debate serenity. And serenity was the tone she chose. As for Selin, the cruelest assumption is that she volunteered for the role people wrote for her. She didn't. The spotlight shifts fast. Sometimes you only recognize where you've been standing once the bulbs heat your skin. To her credit, the measured hush from her side kept this from becoming a spectacle she couldn't control. There's strength in stepping aside while the internet tries to name you. So we're left with possibilities. Perhaps he will turn the noise down, return to the work that steadied him, and let time do the mending. Perhaps, against odds, this encounter becomes the seed of something lasting, transformed by honesty and patience instead of speed. Or perhaps it will be a footnote they both look back on as the week when the world believed a photograph more than a heartbeat. What cannot be denied is the emotional math. He hoped. She declined. He reacted. Another woman's name got swept into the current. The audience leaned in. And a private ache became a public map. In the end, every star learns this lesson. Fame does not soften love's edges, it sharpens them. That is why this tale is resonating so fiercely. We recognize the pattern, even when the faces change. If you've made it this far, you feel the pull of it, too, the wish for grace for all three, the wish for courage for the one who has to let go, the wish for quiet to return to the one who was firm without being unkind. We'll be here to follow the truth when it moves again. And it will. Because storms pass, but not before they redraw the coast. This is Secrets Behind the Stars, signing off for now. Don't drift too far. The next chapter is almost here.